All right, in this video, we are going to look at how we can change our body composition. So our body composition is our fat mass compared to our lean mass. And lean mass is going to be bone, muscle, organ, tissue, all that. And fat mass is going to be just fat mass. So usually this is given as a body fat percentage. And this is better than BMI for most people. BMI is good for populations. Body fat percentage is better for individuals. And the idea here is we need some fat mass. We don't want to have too low fat mass because fat mass is important. But if you have too much, it's unhealthy for us. And so we typically, let's turn this down. Well, not typically. It depends on the person. The average American tends to need to lose some fat mass. And we tend to need to gain some lean mass. So that's what we're going to learn today. How we can lose some fat mass, how we can build some lean mass. So first of all, you got to make sure that you have some fat mass to lose, because if you get too little fat mass, that's not healthy for us. So let's assume we know that. There's probably another video that I'll make on some point explaining how much fat mass you need, but let's leave that there. The thing that you're going to need to know in order to figure out how to lose and gain muscle, lose fat mass, is you need to know your RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate. So this is how many calories you burn per day. Let's hop over here. There's some online calculators that work pretty well for this. So this is one that I like, tdeecalculator.net. And all you have to do is put your age in there. Let's do imperial. There we go. All right. So I'm 150, I'm 6'1". Sedentary, and my body fat. You can leave this blank. Let's just leave this blank because most of you probably won't know that. So we have a few numbers here. One, we have this basal metabolic rate right here. So let's write this down. So basal is kind of the same as RMR, basal metabolic rate. So this is kind of if I lay in bed all day. I'm going to burn about 1,689 calories if I lay in bed all day, right? Just to support my body function. A good rule of thumb is you typically do not want to eat less than this for most people. We want to make sure that we're eating more than our basal metabolic rate. So that's a good number to know. Oh, you can't see this? Okay, so, well, here we go. My sedentary number right here. Sedentary, as you can see, is about 2,000 calories. This is if I go about my day, go to work, just kind of sit at a desk quite often, not very much. Light exercise, this is if I walk 3 to 5 miles per day. Moderate is if I walk, 6 to 8 miles a day. So light exercise could also be if I walked maybe a mile and then did like an hour lift. That's kind of light exercise. So you can check that out. I'm going to move us back over here. So we have our basal metabolic rate. You typically don't want to eat below that. Let me write my sedentary in here. It's about, we'll just call it 2,000 calories. And then let's go with just light exercise, because that's where most people are at. Well, not most people. If people are exercising, that's where most exercisers are at. So that's about 2,300. Okay, and the idea with gaining mass or losing mass is we need to be either adding more calories to our body or adding less calories to our body. So assuming, let's say I eat my basal metabolic rate. So let's say I eat 1,700 calories and I am sedentary, right? So in this scenario, I am losing 300 calories per day. If I'm losing 300 calories per day, my weight will be going down. Now, when we're thinking about this, we want to make sure that it's fat mass going down and not muscle mass, at least for most of us, right? Fat mass, not muscle mass. So we'll talk about how we can do that in a second here. On the flip side, if we're trying to, let's see here. There we go. On the flip side, if we are trying to build muscle, we need to eat more than what we're burning. And you can find some middle ground. Like let's say I'm lifting weights. Let's say I'm burning about 2,300 calories per day, but I'm lifting weights and I'm eating exactly 2,300 per day. Then I will be building a little bit of lean mass or muscle mass and losing a little bit of fat mass. So there's a happy medium in there as well. If you just eat what you're burning through and your resistance training, you can do both at the same time. Okay, so we got that concept down. Let's say I want to build some lean mass, so I need to eat a little extra. If I'm trying to maximize muscle gain, let's say. So let's assume I'm burning 2,300 calories because I'm lifting on that day and maybe doing a 1 or 2 mile walk. What I would want to do is I would want to add 200 to 300 calories for my day. If you eat more than this and you're lifting, a lot of that will be added to fat. So a good rule of thumb is if I'm light exercising, I'd want to eat about 2,500 calories. That would be a bonus of 200 calories. And at that rate, I should be building quite a bit of muscle, assuming I'm lifting properly. So we kind of got the concept down, right? So calories in versus calories out. Things get a little bit more complicated than that, but for the most part, this works very well for most people. I've been doing this for a long time. So, all right, let's talk about gaining muscle first. Yeah, let's talk about that. So let's say you want to gain muscle. All right, so we already got one. Let's say gain, and then let's say let's write loss over here. So if you want to gain muscle mass, like I said, you need to eat about 200 to 300 extra calories per day. A lot of times people ask, how do you know how many calories you eat? You can track it on MyFitnessPal or Chronometer is one that I like. Let me write that down here. Chronometer. It's a website or it's an app.com. And basically, you just enter in what foods you eat, and it'll calculate it for you. You got to be careful with this. Sometimes people get carried away. They start counting calories too much. That can be unhealthy behavior mentally, so just be aware of that. If that's not good for you, you can do other things like cutting out maybe late-night snacking or something like that. So there are ways to cut out extra calories if you need. We got to make sure we're doing that in a healthy way. So, all right, so we got one, eating excess calories there. 2, sleep is really good. Actually, for weight gain, muscle gain, or fat loss, sleep for muscle gain is really good because we increase our testosterone release, which helps us recover. So that's a benefit there. So you want to get 7+ hours if you can, even up to 9 or 10 if you're an athlete, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Another thing we can think about for gaining, and this goes for any workout, is we want to eat post-workout, right? We've already had a video on this, but just to reiterate this, you want to eat about 20 grams of protein, and you want to eat about 80 grams of carbs. And this is going to add up to about 320 calories per day. So, if you are already maintaining your body composition and you just add this, you can get that 300 calories that'll go to muscle growth right there with your post-exercise snack. All right, so we got that. After you eat your post-exercise snack, what we see protein synthesis, which is you rebuilding protein, increase, which is really nice. And then it'll start to go down. You usually want to eat this post-workout snack within 30 minutes. 30 minutes, all right. And then afterwards, what you want to do, about 2 hours afterwards, is just eat a well-balanced meal. Eat meal. So this will cause another spike in protein synthesis. You get a double spike there. So that's a really good benefit. Just means more muscle growth. So another tip there for gaining muscle mass. If we're looking at what type of lifting you want to do, we've talked about this in class before, but the 8 to 12 rep range seems to be best. It allows you to lift a lot of volume, and you kind of need volume in order to grow muscle mass. So what I like to do is lift weight until I can lift it 12 times. And then once I can lift it 12 times, I increase the weight. That's probably a pretty good way for most people to go about it without having to calculate like 1 rep maxes and that kind of stuff. And then another thing to think about is in your week for the muscle that you want to grow, we need to hit 5 to 20 sets on that muscle. So if you're doing bicep curls, and let's say you're doing 3 reps per day, you want to hit your biceps at least 2x per week, right? We also want to make sure we're taking off days so we can recover, because during our off rest days is when we actually get those gains. So, you could do 4 sets, 2x a week. That would be 8 sets total. And the more advanced you get, the more muscle mass you get, the more volume you need. And so usually the sets needs to go up. All right. So I think that's a pretty good overview of gaining muscle. Let's go over to losing fat mass here. So there's a few things we can do. One really good benefit of building muscle is that muscle increases, that's not a good arrow, muscle increases our resting metabolic rate. So every pound of muscle is going to increase your calories every day by about 20 to 30 calories. That's every pound. So this can be really beneficial because let's say over a year, let's say you want to get more tone, something like that, right? You just start working out, building muscle mass. If you put on 10 pounds of muscle, 10 pounds, you're going to be burning at least an extra 200 calories every single day. And if you're trying for weight loss, you don't even need to change how you eat. There, you already have 200 calories. So a lot of times when we think about weight loss, we think about, I need to restrict calories, I need to eat less, all this stuff. But if we think about this metabolic rate here, rather than restricting and decreasing our calories, you're going to need to do that a little bit to some extent. But what I like to do is I like to think about it as from the approach of increasing our resting metabolic rate. And so building muscle mass will actually do that. Another thing, just to stay in line with our gains over here, is sleep. So with sleep can be really important for hunger hormones. I read a study where getting 6 hours or less of sleep per night actually led to people eating an additional 200 to 300 calories in the day, whether that's from fatigue or maybe decision fatigue, where you just have to, you make the decision to eat food when maybe you didn't need to, like a late night snack, something like that. So sleep can really help us with our hunger here. So that can help quite a bit. There's other things too, like caffeine. If you like coffee, caffeine can help you burn a few extra calories. Not a whole lot. Maybe, I'm kind of guessing here, but about maybe 50 calories per day. If we're thinking about like a caloric deficit, you don't want to go too deep, right? So we talked about our resting metabolic rate here. Where is it at? Or basal metabolic rate, right? I do not want to eat below 1,700 calories, just to reiterate that. If I do, I can lose bone mass, I can lose muscle mass, my immune system can kind of take a hit. So rather than having a huge deficit, we want to, increase this metabolic rate. And if you think about how much of a deficit in calories you need per day, you want to keep it pretty moderate for most people. So I think the max people should be doing, unless, maybe for severely obese people, maybe more, but negative 500 calories per day is a pretty good amount, because at this rate, you don't lose very much muscle mass. You don't gain a whole lot of muscle mass either. So if you're trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, I would maybe go for negative 200 calories per day, or even eating the same, because then you can do a little bit of both. So, let's see. Okay, so 500 calories. If we eat less than, if you had like 1,000 calorie deficit, so let's say with your exercise, you're burning 2,000 calories a day. And if you only ate 1,000 calories, you're going to be losing muscle mass here. And it takes a long time to build muscle mass back. So we don't want to do that. So if you were burning 2,000 calories and your basal metabolic rate was, let's call it 1,400, and you wanted to lose a pound of fat per week, and you're burning 2,000 calories here, I would shoot for about 1,500 calories. That would give you a negative 500 calories for your day, and you'd lose about a pound of fat. If you wanted to burn more calories, so we got building muscle, right? Long term, that burns calories. Also just exercise, right? Lifting for 1 hour is going to burn about 250 calories. It's typically less than we think, but that's another way we can, and this has double benefits. One, you're helping build muscle, and two, you're burning calories while you lift. Lots of people talk about cardio for burning calories, and it does do that. These watches, they're pretty good at measuring how many calories people are burning. A good equation is most people are burning about 70 to 100 calories per mile. So if you wanted to, you could walk maybe 3 miles and you'd burn about 300 calories. Okay, so that's another option for you there. Another thing that can help you burn some calories or increase that resting metabolic rate is ice water. So calories are technically, you can convert them into heat, and ice water will take away heat. And so, what is it? I think 1 cup or 8 ounces of water leads to about negative 8 calories per day. So it burns about 8 calories. So every ounce of ice water is going to burn about 8 calories. So if you drink 100 ounces of ice water, that's another 100 calories right there. So that can be significant over a large period of time, especially when we only want a deficit of maybe 200 or maybe 500. What else? We can also increase our protein intake. So protein actually takes more calories to digest, and this is called the thermogenic effect of food. Thermogenic effect of food. And so a higher protein diet will actually burn more calories in the process of breaking down that protein. You can also eat frequent meals. That kind of just keeps your digestive system working, and that can help you potentially lose some weight as well. So, who knows how much this would be, maybe 50 to 100 calories, depending on how much protein you are actually eating. And then if we're thinking in terms of steps, because a lot of people have watches with step counters, what's kind of recommended is for weight loss is 10,000 all the way up to 15,000 steps per day. So that can be a kind of a barometer that you use there. Okay, so I think we got a pretty good idea. Let me just kind of give you a brief overview here. So for muscle loss, remember, we don't want to eat below our resting metabolic rate, right? So if you do go to that website, calculate your resting metabolic rate, you want to make sure you eat more than that. We don't want to practice severe caloric restrictions, so be careful if you do count your calories. What I like to do is maybe count 2 times, 2 days, just to get a ballpark of what I naturally eat, and then I can adjust from there. We want to be sleeping about 6 hours. That can help reduce our calorie intake by 200 to 300 calories sometimes. We have caffeine there, 500 calories, or about 50 calories per day. It'll burn extra, potentially. If we're looking at this, so we're saying 500 calories is kind of the max I think we should do. You can go down to 1,000, but again, you got to make sure you're eating resting metabolic rate. So I like 500 better, especially so we don't lose muscle mass. Or if you want to lose slower and build more muscle mass, you could go negative 200 calories per day. So if we're looking at that, if you do your lift and you eat, so let's just say you lift in the day and then you eat your sedentary metabolic rate calories, which is up here, right? 2,000. If I did that plus I lifted, I'd burn 2,200 calories per day, basically. And there, I'm already at my negative 200 calories. I'll be building some muscle. I can make sure that I'm eating after my workout, getting in that second meal after my snack 2 hours later, get the appropriate sets, the appropriate reps, and we'll be losing fat and building muscle. If we want to go the cardio route, let's say I want to go negative 500 calories. I do my lift, and then maybe I go run for 3 miles. Boom, now I'm at negative 550 calories. I'm going to be hopefully maintaining my lean mass, and I'm going to be losing some fat mass. And then if we want to do a little bit more, we can always add in some ice water. Maybe there's a day I take off. I drink some extra ice water. Maybe I increase protein in my diet. There's another 50 to 100 calories. And then, we got steps down here if you want to add steps or track steps that way. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good overview video. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.